The questions to the Cabinet members will now be taken. Question number 11, Councillor Hogg.
Question 11 to the.
I thank the councillor for the question. I think there are two dimensions to this question. The first is to do with the geographical aspect, the science, and the other is to do with time. On the first, I think it's very clear, as is laid out in the response here, that what may go for one site, Embassy Gardens, does not necessarily follow for another. The Royal Mail site had a big contamination problem, very costly to fix. Covent Garden, big infrastructure issues, and of course, above all, Battersea Power Station, huge commitments that they undertook, and the central contribution, if you like, to the Northern Line extension. And despite all of that, we have still managed to produce 15% of affordable housing, which in our previous debate we highlighted puts us first amongst all London boroughs, at 12-13, in terms of our provision for affordable housing. So I would submit that we did very, very well there, and you cannot compare sites that are very, very different to each other and expect the same regime. The other dimension, of course, is time. If one casts mind back 3 years, 3-4 years, the development market was in a very, very different place. Confidence was low, values were low, and our role was clearly to get things moving and to give the developers the confidence that they could invest in Wandsworth and that things would work. And that was, above all, the most important thing. And that we clearly have achieved. When one looks at what is now happening at Nine Elms, it's a tremendous success. And that has only happened because we gave the developers that confidence. If we'd put in these review mechanisms at the outset, we would have risked killing off that resurgence. I would very strongly argue that we've got the balance right and that we've done a very good job.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Thank you. I mean, I agree, Nine Elms is tremendous. I think many members took a tour there last week and saw Embassy Gardens and other developments taking place. I think we were a bit shocked at one point when the planning officer said, you realise there's 4 of us, to hold the ring against all these landowners, developers, lobbyists and all the rest. And I think in this case, we just have to admit we've been had. They've put one over on us. They managed to negotiate their deals up front at the bottom of the market. We've left tens of millions of pounds on the table, which could have gone towards affordable housing in the borough. That being said, it's good the council has committed to a review of this, and I think it's fair that that can go up as well as down. Can he tell the council when that review will conclude and we can get these profit share schemes that are fair to developers and fair to the community in place?
Well, I thank the council for the supplementary. I mean, I just completely reject the premise of it. Ironically, it's rather like the debate about Royal Mail shares, isn't it? Your argument rests entirely on hindsight. If you were saying these things sooner, I think you might have had a little bit more credibility. I don't accept for a moment that we've been had. We have an extremely efficient and professional team. The point that they've achieved what they have with a smaller team than most boroughs, I think, is something to be extremely proud of. And I think everybody recognises that it's a matter of nurturing markets and harnessing the best thing about them. Your party always places yourself in opposition to the market, and you fundamentally don't understand the way that you work. And that I think is one of the big differences between us.
Councillor Ellis, yes.
Could the Cabinet member explain where the £1 billion for the tube line came from? Did it fall off a Christmas tree?
Oh, I thank the councillor for that. I don't think it did fall off a Christmas tree, no. It came from the developers in Nine Elms, which is precisely my point. And when one looks at what we've achieved in that short space of time, the Northern Line extension, private money, 15% affordable housing, a contribution to one of the highest level in the entire city, and everything else that's happening at Nine Elms, I think that is a remarkable achievement. And it does disappoint me that the Labour Party can't just show some humility and acknowledge that.
Councillor Grimston.
Thank you. Question 12 of the Cabinet Member for Housing.
I'd like to thank Councillor Grimston for his question. Obviously, this particular incident, and indeed similar incidents, are, of course, very distressing for the neighbours of the families concerned. Fortunately, they are fairly rare, but obviously they are very, very distressing. I understand that Councillor Grimston has been in touch with the Housing Department on a couple of occasions about this, and I think they have discussed with him the details of the case, which I'm sure members will understand can't be disclosed this evening, and I hope that he is happy with the service that he's received from the department.
Supplementary. Can I thank the Cabinet member for a very thoughtful and intelligent answer, and indeed I'm very happy with the response to the Housing Department on current policy. I wonder whether the Cabinet member shares with me just a slight concern that with something as peculiar as this, and I absolutely take the point we've got to be careful not to name the individuals involved, but in the peculiar circumstances of two fires in the same flat within 3 years, the resident in question being the first person on the scene to see the resident who jumped from the flat and was quite severely injured, that in those very peculiar circumstances, whether the very mechanical is not quite the right word, but it's close to it, system of awarding points on a scale doesn't really capture these very peculiar incidents which can have very damaging effects on a very small number of individuals. This is the only case within Andrew Reid House where I've had correspondence of this sort. And would the Cabinet member perhaps at least consider as to whether, when, as he says, these fortunately very rare incidents do occur, whether there might be space for us being a little bit more flexible in looking at the interests of the residents, while of course bearing in mind, and I absolutely take the point, that we need to have a system which is demonstrably fair and transparent.
I'd like to thank Councillor Grimston for his supplementary. I would very much hope that officers would take a sympathetic view of any cases like this. I believe they often do ask for medical reports and so on, and I'm sure that will be taken into account, and I've no doubt there have been transfers on compassionate grounds in the past, and I expect there will be in the future.
Councillor Jones.
Question 13 to the Cabinet Member for Community Services.
I thank the Council for the question, her maiden question. Part A, I think it would have been a pretty tall order given that the very impressive deputation that came to the committee only actually made itself known and presented its information late afternoon the day before. It would have been very difficult to get detailed legal advice to the committee, so that was a matter of practicality. And Part B, I do not recall actually committing to bringing back a fully formed policy in September. What we certainly will be doing is bringing back a review of the policy for approval for consultation in September. But what I'm very pleased to be able to tell members tonight is that largely as a result of the excellent presentation of the deputation led by Dan Watkins and also Dale Ingram, who clearly knew what they were talking about, I immediately asked officers to look in detail at all of the information that was presented. They got on to other London boroughs, Camden in particular, and earlier this week there were detailed discussions with lawyers, and as a result of that I'm pleased to be able to say that we will be as soon as we possibly can, I hope by the end of next week, we'll be putting in place an Article 4 direction to protect against change of use. So I hope everybody can agree that that is the right way forward.
Supplementary?
Yes.
I'm Fleur Anderson, Councillor Fleur Anderson. That's fantastic news, great news, as I've been following the Wheatleaf campaign and part of that campaign for a long time. So can I just ask you for clarification? You will be putting in the Article 4 direction against change of use by the end of next week?
Well, as I said, I thought it was pretty clear. As soon as we possibly can, I hope it'll be by the end of next week. Yeah, so way before September.
Yes.
Councillor. Does the Cabinet member share my slight frustration that the opposition appear to be using this issue as a bit of a political football when there's a clear cross-party consensus? I think Sadiq Khan MP even accused the Council of bottling it on the issue when this is clearly not the case. I thank my colleague for the question. Well, yes, I was very, very disappointed to see Sadiq. I was very disappointed to see Sadiq Khan's comments, because until that point, it had been a reasonably
cross-party sort of approach to these things. So I thought that was most unfortunate. It's a nice line, isn't it? He just clearly couldn't resist it. What sprang to my mind was on this subject, he's more froth than no beer.
Councillor Torrington.
I thank the councillor for this question. Well, yes, of course, we'll be doing this just as quickly as we possibly can be. I was down there a few hours ago myself. The arrangements in place seem to be working well. It's all calm and everyone's just going about their business in an orderly way. But clearly there's disruption. We want to get it over with as quickly as we possibly can.
Yes.
Got it. The Cabinet member will be aware of the narrow 2-metre strip used by pedestrians on the road bridge, which is also shared by cyclists walking their bikes over in opposite directions, is very tight. We've been campaigning for a cycle ramp on the adjoining rail bridge owned by London Underground Limited, to install a cycle ramp which could be used as an alternative by pedestrians and cyclists. Do we now have a time frame when that will be installed, and good publicity measured in to inform residents of that?
Well, I thank the councillor for the supplementary. Yes, I'm aware of the cycle ramp on the footbridge from Deoda Road. We're looking to get that in place just as soon as possible, I believe a couple of weeks, but as soon as we can, and that will clearly help because it is a little bit narrow on the bridge if you've got bikes trying to pass, but it is possible.
Yes, Councillor Amber.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for introducing my petition. I now will know in future to do it myself. This relates supplementary to the petition, and that was the concern from local people about the buses turning on the Putney side of the bridge. They will, as I understand, drop passengers off on the bridge and they'll walk over the bridge, and they'll go down to Putney Pier where they'll need to reverse around, and some of them go back on the route. A number of people are concerned, and they did sign the petition, that there will be increased pollution and noise. The question is, the written answer says that only pollution in Felsham Road will be monitored. Would it be possible to monitor the pollution around the bridge and the pier area to see if there's an increase? Thank you.
I thank the councillor for the question. It's slightly curious, if I may say so. Very difficult to do that because there's no baseline to work from, so what are you comparing it against? But of course the bigger point that I would make is that because there is now hugely reduced traffic in Putney High Street, pollution will be much, much less. And we are, of course, measuring that, and that will be a very valuable baseline. And, of course, the work we've done in Putney High Street over the last 3 years is widely recognised as the way to move forward on tackling these issues. So, slightly puzzled by the councillor's question. I think the buses will just need to turn around.
Councillor Thomas.
Question number 15 to the Cabinet Member.
Oh, I am pleased with this question, partly because this has been a particularly successful tender, and we are delighted with the results. But I'm also delighted to announce the last part of the response to A of the question, that because of the terrific tender that we got back on this, that we have decided to put an extra 10p in the price of the food to raise us from what is actually one of the better authorities having a bronze award, but it will give us a gold award for the sort of school meals that we're providing.
Well, the Cabinet Member sounds slightly surprised that I should have asked a question that might result in good news. It's not always the question that always the case that our questions are actually fishing for bad news, and I genuinely do welcome her answer. I think it's very reassuring, and the news that we are moving to the Food for Life Gold standard is very, very good news indeed. May I just ask a question that is connected, though? I'm sure the Cabinet Member will have seen Michael Gove's recently announced new standards for school meals to crack down on fatty and sweet foods. I should say the former Education Secretary, I don't think he'll be missed on either side, actually. Can she confirm that we're going to be in a position to actually ensure that these are adhered to across all schools in the borough, including all academies and free schools?
Yes, that's an interesting one. As far as those that buy into the contract, they can be guaranteed that they'll be getting a healthy meal. The academies and free schools, of course, and some of our own schools don't buy into the contract. And I'm not sure that we've considered yet how we would monitor that sort of provision. I mean, for instance, one of the free schools is only offering, because the parents have said they want it that way, is only offering packed lunches. And we will need to get our Healthy Schools officer in to make sure that they are insisting those packed lunches are as healthy as possible. But I will look at that. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor
Supplementary. I just wondered if you could tell me whether or not menus will be provided to the kids. That's something that currently happens, and it's very useful for parents and children, actually.
Yes, absolutely. I particularly like the idea that a contractor doesn't necessarily expect everybody to stay for school lunch every day, but that offers a menu and gives them perhaps a week's notice or a fortnight's notice so that children and parents can choose themselves whether they want that particular meal that day. And this contractor is certainly willing to do that.
Councillor Field.
Question 16 to Cabinet Member for Community Services.
I thank the Councillor for the question. Well, there's definitely a tremendous opportunity here. Given the width of the road, there clearly a lot could be done. TfL are working on designs now. We hope to have something back in September. We're some way off knowing how works might be funded, so we need to bear in mind that we have that challenge to come. But I feel very positive about this, and I agree with Councillor Field that this is exciting and there's a lot that we could do to improve this stretch of road.
Supplementary. Has the Cabinet member seen or heard of any enthusiastic support from the Labour Party to these plans for improvements on the Balham Boulevard?
I thank the Council for that question. It's a very interesting one. I'm not sure I have. I'm aware that the previous Bedford Ward councillors worked very, very hard, and Councillor Dunn, I know, we've been in touch on that in the last few days. So no, I don't think I am.
Just as a matter of fact, I certainly supported it, and so did the rest of the Labour group when it came up in the appropriate committee.
And now an opportunity to ask your own question.
Question 17 of the Chair of the Planning Applications Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Belton, for your question. Yes, I'm totally aware of how large the agendas are on the Planning Applications Committee, especially as a new chairman of that committee. I think actually we're a country where people do complain more and do pick up objections more, so I think that's probably part of the reason. But we are taking into account, and we have a review underway to thin down the agenda and perhaps put more through to delegation, but with also giving the chance for members to refer up if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those who haven't got round to reading every page of it, the main paper is 463 pages long. If you don't believe me and think I'm making the figures up, I've got it here. That's the main paper, and there are a couple of additional papers on top of that. I think it's a little bit difficult to envisage any members doing it justice. And my concern is not the delegation, which the question actually poses the delegation, but actually we are being run by the lawyers and officers. As far as I'm concerned, the committee is there to make political decisions. And I am aware, and I hope that the Chair will take this on board when we discuss this, I'm aware that we have to get the legal facts right or else the decisions will be challenged. But we're putting in so much into the paper that the only option, unless we're careful, is that we're going to have to delegate everything, which does not seem to me to be the point of a political process. Somehow or other...
Can you move to the question, please?
Well, I thought there wasn't enough question there. I hope that means that we're going to be firm with the officers and actually control what's on the agenda and not just take what's given us. That's the question. Will the chairman tackle that problem?
Thank you, Councillor Belton. No, I mean, I'm sure we're definitely not going to go to the stage where everything's delegated. We'd have no planning applications committee then, would we? And that would spoil the whole democratic process of having some say over planning applications in the borough. It's a fine balance because obviously we need the information. I know in other committees there's a sort of terrible thought that we don't have enough information. So having enough information in the Planning Applications Committee is vital for us to have that balance to know whether it's legally acceptable. And there are more and more rules and regulations coming through on energy and climate and affordable housing and viability. We've got to have that information to be able to give us as members that chance to make a considered judgment.
Councillor Caddy.
Question 18 to the Cabinet Member.
Well, I'm sure everybody in the chamber is absolutely delighted about this news, and I think we have the trophy on display. It really is a fantastic achievement for the second year running to have won this. Sadly, I can't take the credit for it because it more rightly, although of course it is the youngsters that take part in it, but it is the sports development team, which sits within my colleague's portfolio, that manages to put all this together. But the results this year really were truly astounding, and we congratulate all the young people that have taken part.
Thank you very much for your answer. Can the Cabinet Member confirm that we will be publicising this success as widely as we can across the borough, and especially in schools, so that these achievements can continue to inspire future sports champions?
Yes, I concur with that, but actually I think the sort of publicity we ought to be doing is not so much on the success, but on the accessibility and trying to encourage all our youngsters, just showing how, you know, with a bit of help and support, they can be so successful and getting as many youngsters as possible involved in sport. So, yes, we will, but these particular youngsters really have performed so terribly well.